33 years. In those 33 years, how many times have I raised my voice or yelled at you? He said, I know exactly how many. 3. I said, okay. He goes, and I deserved all of them. It's how you serve it, how you put it down, how you smile, how you present it, the cleanliness of the bathrooms. I said, there's so many factors that change that. It's not that bottle of Miller Lite.
You're listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, featuring real business owners telling real stories about their real business experiences. Here are your hosts, John Chiappetta and Eric Jorn.
Welcome to another episode of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. Today on the show, we have Junior Martinez from the O'Toole's Pub Group. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're so excited to have you. Hey, tell us a little bit about what the O'Toole's Pub Group does, how you got started, the whole story.
Well, originally, my father and I started Two Umbertos Incorporated, it's the parent company. And we started in 1988 in Evanston, just opened up a little mom-and-pop restaurant 2 blocks from the campus, Northwestern University campus. And basically your breakfast, lunch, and dinner type of spot. Open at 6 in the morning, pancakes, you name it, omelets, etc. It was home-cooked meals. Did that for a while with my dad and got wind of a place that was available downtown in Streeterville in 1992. And back then, Streeterville wasn't what it is today. Navy Pier was actually not open. It was just a big slab of cement out in the middle of Lake Michigan with nothing going on. There was no Sheraton Hotel there. Literally, you didn't go east of Michigan Avenue back then. Northwestern Memorial was actually a community hospital, so it was very different back then. But I got wind of this location that was available, and it was set up as a sports bar by 2 well-known names in the restaurant business in Chicago that I'm not going to mention, but nonetheless, they'd had some issues with the landlord, who now became a partner by default because they weren't paying rent. Ooh. And headed down there, took a look at the space, and you got to keep in mind I'm 26 years old. So To me, it's like, this looks great. There's an opportunity here. Because there were so many factors that just didn't make sense. I mean, they had 100 beers on a list, and they had 1 cooler behind the bar. So I asked for a beer, just the list, and he's looking through the bottles, trying to figure out what they are by looking at the bottle cap, because they kept them in ice tubs behind the bar, and the labels had a long time ago fallen off. So the only way to identify what the actual bottles were was by looking at the bottle cap.
Yeah.
So just kind of took a leap of faith. The landlord granted us the lease, and basically walked in with 4 Cook County sheriffs and evicted the current owners. Stayed on temporarily while the licenses transitioned, but that's kind of how we walked into our first Timothy O'Toole's pub location in Chicago. After that, we kind of just went through the motions of learning how to run a pub. My background wasn't in that. My dad's always been in the restaurant business. Opened up his first restaurant when I was 5 years old in Mexico. So that was kind of our beginning into the restaurant business. When we emigrated here, he went into carpentry. Kind of did that just to get us by, but his passion was always in the restaurant business. That was his love. So when I was 11, he opened up his first restaurant here in the States, in Chicago, on Clark and Drummond. It was a restaurant called Postability. Northern Italian restaurant, so learned the ins and outs of the business through him. I guess basically slave labor in the kitchen, learning everything, cleaning calamari, cleaning anything, you named it, the bathroom, whatever was necessary as, the oldest of 2 sons. And from there, really just stayed in our blood, the passion. My dad was always in the industry. He was self-taught, became a sommelier in some of the best French restaurants here in the city back in the day. And then one day it's like, hey, let's open up a place. I'm like, yeah, what the heck, why not? School really wasn't for me, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wasn't going to be an engineer, which was what I was going to school for. And kind of fell into it, to be honest with you. So, yeah. And since then, we've opened up many locations for other people. My wife and I, Sarah, did some consulting and fell into some people that had money, doctors, lawyers, that thought owning a restaurant was a great thing to do. It was a lot of fun. It was cool. But didn't realize that I don't care how much money you have, but when you get to that point, you start losing money. And it's no longer fun when your friends just come over and not expect to pay for a bottle of champagne or whatever they're ordering. You name it. They're ordering the best on the list. It no longer becomes fun. And your accountant, says, hey, you better wake up here or you're going to be in serious trouble. This is going to become a money drain. Yeah. So that's how we kind of got thrown into that. We started running places for other people. We knew we wanted to start a family, so we transitioned out to Lake County. We were in the city at the time. And started opening up locations up here. So 14 years ago, we opened up Timothy O'Toole's in Gurnee, right by Great America, and then Libertyville, and then Lakeville 5 years ago. So that's kind of the O'Toole's Pub Group story. And now we even have a little bagel shop in Libertyville. When I say we, it's actually my 4 kids that own it, but they're kind of getting into it a little bit.
Oh, cool.
How did the transition go with your dad?
You know what? That's kind of a same thing. It's a odd question because what was the mom and pop restaurant, Sarah and I told my dad we wanted to turn it into something else. We wanted to buy him out, in essence, is what we came up to him. He was 52 at the time, and he was kind of eyeballing. He'd bought a house in Mexico with my mom, and that was kind of their retirement. So we wanted to see if they wanted to expedite that retirement, and we offered him a buyout. He accepted it, and then we turned that restaurant into what was called Chaplin's, which was more of a neighborhood bistro. That was the first time we transitioned to more upscale food. Actually, our chef, who came out of culinary school at Kendall, when Kendall was in Evanston at the time, is back with the company now, 20-some-odd years later. But we turned it into the American bistro and did things that, at the time, were very cutting edge. We had a huge martini list and things like that. So my dad loved that part of it, but unfortunately, the day that he was officially supposed to retire, my dad passed of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, that was in 1996. I got the phone call. We were at the restaurant and raced. My parents lived still, well, my mom still does, by Midway Airport, southwest side of the city. Mm-hmm. So by the time I got to the hospital, my dad had not made it. Yep. So he never got to realize what we did. So the transition was great in that sense that he was excited to semi-retire, and he loved what we were doing and just was happy and proud, but he never got to see it to fruition, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, that's tough.
It was.
What's interesting to me is always like in the family dynamic, the kids always want to do something maybe a little bit different than dad, or how they want to do it different than dad. What kind of things did you guys go through with that?
You know what? He was always open-minded. My dad, as I mentioned, you got to consider we're of Mexican descent, so coming from that background, and for my father to be working in French restaurants with some of the top names back then, there was a restaurant called Le Perroquet, and at that time was the #1 French restaurant in America. So for him to step into that realm really brought a lot to me because I got to see a lot of those things. My dad would bring home some very strange ingredients, put it this way. We'd be eating, it's like, you got to try this. I'm like, what is it? It's like, just try it. Do you like it? Yes. And what was it? Eel.
Oh, yeah.
And mini little eels. And he'd have me try Armagnac and different things. He was trying to cultivate my palate to learn certain things. So he was extremely open-minded what we were doing because it hadn't been seen at that point, what we were doing. It was just very different. So it excited him. And him and my wife, Sarah, they were always pals. They would always sit down together. And to this day, it's funny because we look at it, it's like, I remember when I sat there with your dad and we were drinking he wanted me to try a bottle of Old Fitz or oldest bourbons that if we still had, if I would have kept, are worth tens of thousands of dollars because,
wow,
we didn't know what it was back then. And that's kind of the way it was transitioned. My dad would bake, he wanted to make the perfect apple pie. So we would have apple pie for 3 months because he'd literally make, and I'm not exaggerating, 100 apple pies. So he perfected the crust and the right apples, the right combination. That's just the way it was.
Wow.
So there was always a mess in the kitchen, and we were always the guinea pigs in trying that out. So my dad welcomed the transition into Chaplin's. He thought it was really interesting because he tried the food, and he really loved what we were trying to accomplish there.
It's weird enough to even hear that there was nothing east of Michigan Avenue in Chicago.
There really wasn't.
To today, that hits me a little harder, I guess. I've never known Chicago of not having an east of Michigan Avenue. So how did you go from store number 1 to store number 2?
Well, it was exactly as I mentioned, we were moving up in this direction, and ironically enough, my mother-in-law had liked the restaurant that was in the location we're in now. and mentioned it to us, and we mentioned the group of friends. We were taking our kids. We were going to Great America. We said, hey, we know this spot that's recommended. We should go try it. So we all pulled up in the parking lot. Noticed it was kind of odd. There weren't many cars in the parking lot.
Yep.
You get to the door, and you pull the door handle, and it was closed. So we started looking around, and then we saw a small for lease sign. So we realized at that point that the space had closed. So we called the number, got a little bit of information on it, and wound up taking that location over. There was a lot of lawsuits. There was a lot of controversy with the location, unfortunately. Same thing, another restaurant group from Chicago. The head of that was an ex-Let Us Entertain You alum who is now back with Let Us Entertain You.
Okay.
Same thing. I won't mention the name or the location. But so we transitioned the same thing into that from what they were doing. They were trying something very, very different. They actually had a grill behind the actual bar. So they had a chef back. So if you ordered sliders or burgers, certain items on the menu, they'd actually prepare them in front of you on a griddle behind the main bar.
Okay.
So it didn't work. It was just, I think, same thing with Gurney. They weren't prepared for that. It was just, I don't know if it was the prices. I honestly don't know exactly what it was. But we liked the feel of the location and felt that we could transition into a Timothy O'Toole's pub. So same thing, kind of a leap of faith, and jumped into that. And going into, we still call it the land of chains, because there's not many independent restaurants in Gurney.
No.
So coming into that, we knew that it'd either be sink or swim. Either the public would welcome it, looking at something different, or they'd kind of stick with the Applebee's, Chili's of the world out there. And to this day, they've obviously welcomed us, and Gurney's been nothing but great to us. The town itself, the people, but it's still the land of chains.
Yeah.
So I think we're still one of a handful of independents out of the 100 restaurants that are there. It's probably 6 of us.
Wow.
How did you come up with Timothy O'Toole's?
That was, we hired a woman to come up with a logo. And at the time, the logo was very different. I should have actually brought it. And she kind of came up with the name and a logo.
Okay.
The logo was kind of a bald-headed guy laying on the bar, and it said Timothy O'Toole's over them. And actually, we changed it because there was some controversy back then. Lester Holt, who was a customer of ours at the time, before he went on to become nationally recognized, did a series called Politically Incorrect, and they flashed our logo on there. And he was a good customer, so we kind of got into it a little bit with the studio because I had my feelings about it. I said, well, why is this politically incorrect? They said, because you're stereotyping the Irish guy passed out on the bar. I said, no, you're stereotyping. I said, first of all, who said he's passed out from drinking? I said, maybe he worked the third shift. He's a hard-working Irish Chicagoan that's sleeping. I said, nobody said it's a bar. I said, well, it's apparent what it's doing. He's got a beer spilled, and the foam formed the apostrophe in the O'Toole's, etc. And then he was holding a 4-leaf clover in his other hand as he's laying down on the bar that formed the other apostrophe in the word O'Toole's. But once again, I said, well, that's once again your interpretation. I said, so for you to feature this politically incorrect, change it. So when they reran it, they edited out the logo.
Okay.
So he did do us that favor after I raised my concerns on that. So, but ever since then, we did transition to a simpler logo because of that, just perception once again. And, people looking at it, and with the drinking and driving thing, as that movement became a lot more prevalent. Back then, there weren't Ubers. It was mostly taxis, but we were dealing with the hotel industry down there. So most of the people that come in on the weekends were staying in hotels or locally. And as Streeterville developed, it was a neighborhood that was growing upward. So people lived in these high-rises. So it was a very, very dense neighborhood. It might still be the densest neighborhood in Chicago. So most of our regulars lived walking distance. So that wasn't a major concern back then, as it is nowadays. But so that was kind of the story about the Timothy O'Toole's thing. So yes, we hired a woman to come up with the name.
So location 1 in Streeterville.
Correct.
Location 2, Gurney.
Yes.
And then location 3, Libertyville.
Yes.
How did that one come about?
Well, that one's a little. See, all of them.
They all got good stories, right?
They all have stories. That location was a Mickey Finn's.
Okay.
Who we were just talking about because they had the incident this past week.
Yep.
Mickey Finn's been there for a long time, And as a matter of fact, Sarah's parents, my wife's parents, lived in Libertyville. My wife went to Libertyville High School. So the first time I met her parents, she actually took me to Mickey Finn's, and it was a lot smaller location. But they had their difficulties with the landlord that we inherited. Won't say much about that one either. But they were looking to build out their own space, and a space became available on the other side of the street, and they jumped on it because they brew beer.
Yep.
So for them it was a natural progression for an expansion, so they could brew more beer, and they did a great job. They opened up a new location. Location became available, and for Sarah it was like, hey, it'd be nice for me to come home and open up an O'Toole's. And of course there was a lot of thought that went into that, a lot of reservations, being that Mickey Finn's. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of other locations in Libertyville. We don't know if we'd be welcomed the way we'd want to be. So that one's actually called O'Toole's of Libertyville. We took away the Timothy part because we wanted to be a little bit different. We didn't want to come in the guns a-blazing because our menu and our concepts are very similar with Mickey Finn's. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to be a good neighbor and come in and do so. That one became the chef-driven location. We had a chef based out of there, and the food was a little bit more avant-garde. It still is a little bit different. I'd say it's 80% of the other menus. But same thing, Libertyville really welcomed what we do. They welcomed the passion that we put into our food. We make simple things. We're making wings. We're doing, salmon, salads, burgers. But there's a story to everything that we put together. We slice, we dice, we make all our own dressings. We're still a scratch kitchen, except for a few things. We don't make our own fries, for instance, but we use the best fry on the market. We take a lot of pride. We put a lot of thought into what goes on a plate, even though it's a simple food. And customers noticed. Mm-hmm. Customers started noticing that maybe our burger was a little bit better or different than our competitor, and they kind of followed us like they did at the other locations. And on top of that, we do a lot of fun events. We love to give back to the community. We're the biggest sponsor of Little League in town, etc. Mm-hmm. We wanted to come back and be a positive force. That was the key for Sarah. She wanted to come back, but for the right reasons, not just to see it as a business opportunity. And here we are with that. The people still love what we do, and they love Mickey Finn's, and they love a lot of the other places up and down the street. But we've found our niche there to coexist with everybody else, and we all get along great, which is the best part. As I mentioned with Mickey Finn's dilemma, we were able to help them out with this, at the same time help ourselves out. It was a win-win, but same thing. You need something, you call anybody up and down that street, and they're bent over backwards to help you out, and vice versa. So we watch out for each other, and we try to aid each other when possible, even though we are competitors.
Yeah, I love that about the restaurant industry. The successful groups, they all work together. If they're in a downtown area, they work together. Most people are, they think that that's my competition. I got to hide my secrets. I can't work for them. And you got to talk bad about them. No, that's the wrong way to approach it. When you all work together, it actually brings more traffic to that concentrated area than when you work against each other.
100%. It really is. You need them to thrive for you to thrive. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's the other restaurants that drive people in town. And then you hope when you're given that chance that you can, not to actually flip that customer, but convince them to come back a second, third, 10th time, etc. And we've been able to slowly peck away at everybody else and build our own niche in that. So same thing, I'm never going to be offended if I walk past a competitor and see one of my customers sitting there. It's just what it is. And Libertyville's that kind of town, where everybody's just at different locations depending on the mood, the day of the week. It could be the beer, it could be the selection. There's many reasons, but there's no reason to ever be upset. It's always that challenge too. You got to challenge yourself to be the best, and if you're able to do that, that customer will come back.
Definitely.
When you're running a small business, especially a family-oriented small business like yours, when you have your spouse involved in the business, there can be, I've seen over the years, where it's a challenge. How do you and Sarah work that out? Like what kinds of things do you handle? When you go home at night, do you not talk about it? Those are the sorts of things, questions that kind of come up a lot.
It's definitely difficult. That's a good way of putting it. It's a challenge every day because I think part of our success has been attributed to the fact that we live it. So yes, we do bring it home, and our kids get to deal with it, and the phone starts ringing at 6 a.m. and the texts don't stop, and it depends on what's going on. So it's an everyday, every second, every minute kind of situation. But it truly is a passion. We love what we do. Sarah focuses more on what we call front of the house, so she deals more with the aesthetics of the business, the decor, the menus, etc. And I deal more back of the house, so I deal more with the cooks, the office, etc. And in what I do, I'm more work the deals when we need equipment, rely on old relationships. We're very, very loyal to our vendors that we have. We go back decades with most of them. So those are the things that I do. So we can be in the same location, honestly, and barely even talk to each other because we're working on completely different things. And she has 100% faith in what I do, and I do in her. So we actually don't even talk about what we're doing at the given moment. So until something crosses our path that we are going to tackle together, it's really not a conversation. And everybody knows how we work. They know our style, and it blends well. So it keeps us out of each other's hair, and keeps us interested, because when we do sit down and have the conversations, it is truly, interesting for me to hear what she has to say, because I don't know what happened on her end and vice versa. So
how often do you cross paths like that?
It all depends. I guess we can be in the same location, and it's always two cars. We don't drive to work together. We don't leave home together. It's always two cars, and I can look out on the parking lot, and her car's gone, and I'm in Libertyville, so she's in Gurnee, or I'm on my way to Chicago, or whatever the case may be. So it's literally just two ships passing in a night. So,
Yeah.
Right.
But at home we deal with it.
So like a home is where you have your board meeting, so to speak.
Yeah, we sit down every morning. We have a little table in our family room that we sit in the corner, and I watch the birds out the window, and the dogs just kind of watch us, and we kind of recap the day, or what our day is going to look like, to see who's going where and what we're focusing on, to make sure we're not double dipping. But at home is where we kind of touch on what happened throughout the day.
So at home, who cooks?
Oh, she does.
She does.
Yeah, she's a great cook. She's a chef, actually.
Oh.
And she has just this ridiculous palate. So, we both cook. We both have done things. We both won different, competitions and things along the line. The wing recipes, for instance, at the locations that we won all the championships with, those are mine. The coleslaw recipe is hers. The ranch is hers. The salsa is mine, etc. So we have a little input on it all. But at home, she cooks, because she's just one of those that can whip it all up, quickly.
Yep.
For the kids, with our kids always being on the go, they've always done some form of sport, travel sport or another. That's kind of the way it's been, and they just call mom. And just Christian's my last one. My son, he's 16 now, but he still calls mom, what's for dinner? And he'd rather have that than eat out fast food or anything else. It's mom's cooking, whatever it is. And so, yeah, Sarah does most of the cooking.
So you have two that are out of college? Is that right?
Yes, 2 in college, 2 in high school. We have 2 seniors, 2 juniors. So we'll have 2 graduations this year, 2 graduations next year.
Yeah, okay.
Busy times.
Yes.
How do the kids like working? You said they had a bagel shop for them. How did they like working in there?
They really, really like the business. We're fortunate that our kids are actually ridiculously good workers. They're very good employees. That's kind of been the difficulty, obviously, lately with COVID and a lot of the changes. The challenges have been hiring people. We have a lot of people applying. We have hundreds of applications a week, to be honest with you. But out of that, we may not hire a single one.
Wow.
Because either their background is just not relevant, or it's just not the right fit for whatever reason. But in that time, we've hired a lot of different kids out of high school and things like that, and it's been very transitionary, because they come and go, or they have different interests. For them, being able to go to concerts more important than going to work.
Yeah.
And they don't see any issue with them just not showing up to work on a Friday or Saturday because they happen to get Cubs tickets or something else, an event that interests them more, and they want to come back the following week. They don't understand that there are repercussions for that. And my kids have kind of led the way with everywhere they are. They're very good workers. My daughter worked in my daughter, who goes to Indiana University, decided to try serving this year in Gurnee. And one of the things that made me proud was she said, I have the highest check average out of all servers. And this is something she transitioned to, never done before. But she prides herself on that. Olivia works events right now in Libertyville. And it's just running up and down the stairs carrying, 80-pound bus tubs and things like that.
Wow.
So they've got that. And I say that comes from mom's side, not me. I move at a very slow pace. But all the kids have really thrown themselves into whatever position they kind of find themselves in. They never say no to anything, and they eventually transition into what they want to try. But as far as the bagel shop, that's been really an eye-opening thing for us and for them, because they simply have been able to turn that thing that's, Clay, it's become a little juggernaut for us. If anything, we're looking to expand that next. Yeah, it's doing very well. We're in the midst of an expansion right now. And for Anya, my oldest, she's out in D.C. at American. She's doing the payroll and different things from out there from school. So they're learning a lot as they go along.
Yeah.
So we're giving them every opportunity to make a decision on what they want to do, because the conversation's always been there. Is this something that you want to do? Mm-hmm. And early on, they just kind of naturally assumed that's what they would do. And Sarah and I have gently been not prodding them away to not do it, but certainly not encouraging them. Not because we don't want them to do it, but we want them to decide on their own, not because they feel the obligation to do it or it's a natural progression. It's a very tough business. And it was tough before COVID. It's a lot tougher right now. There's a lot of indicators out there that'll show that restaurants are up, and there's a lot of belief that things are great or back to normal, but it's the bottom lines that people are not paying attention to. Mm-hmm. We're all kind of staring at each other, afraid to raise prices or afraid to make adjustments, even though the price of the goods that are coming in the door, the cost of labor, and all those other things, the factors have gone up. So in my guesstimation, I think you're going to see some places begin to close. And if you haven't driven past a place recently that closed, that you said, oh my God, I can't believe that place closed.
Yeah.
It's been there forever. And you're going to get a lot more shocks coming up in I'd say the next 12 to 18 months, where you're going to see that, where people just aren't running the books, aren't letting the business make sense. Even us, we're looking at our numbers very closely and making some decisions on things that we may have to change, and where we want to go with our growth and our future plan. But this business is very different than it was pre-COVID, and it's how you adapt to it.
So we have the concept of lifelong learning, right? So ours is paying attention to changes in the tax laws and business climate and stuff like that. What kinds of things do you pay attention to for your version of lifelong learning?
Well, you start with trends. You try and stay relevant is the biggest thing in this business. Mm-hmm. Honestly, we work very hard to do that. We remodel our locations constantly. We try to bring in new items, whether it's a beer, a liquor, a food. We change our menus out often to keep the people interested. So for us, it's staying exactly that relevant, making sure that people don't forget about you, or keep the interest going with people that want to come in and see what you're doing. I always say to my employees that it boils down to how we do our things. I said, our beer, our Miller Lite bottle that you're putting on the bar is no different than the other 10 down the street. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can we serve it colder? Is that the key to selling one more than my competitor next door to me? I said, it's really on us. It's how you serve it, how you put it down, how you smile, how you present it, the cleanliness of the bathrooms. I said, there's so many factors that change that. It's not that bottle of Miller Lite. Yeah. Any of us can walk in anywhere and grab a bottle of Miller Lite. You choose to buy it from whether Mariano's or the corner liquor store. You probably have your trend on where you buy certain things. That's the way the customer thinks. So for us, it's a trend. It's following what's going on out there in reality and being truthful to ourselves, understanding what when you're looking at a number that as much as you want to charge $9 for a burger, that your break-even point is $8.99. You serve one that was ordered medium rare and comes out well done, and you're remaking that burger. You have to factor what your loss factor is too. A lot of people don't do that. They don't really weigh out the items that are unaccounted for, what you feed the employees, what you throw away, a mistake, what you comp. There are so many factors to this business that you have to understand. It's the bottom line. And Clay knows I'm a kind of an addict for that bottom line.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of by the wayside.
When a business has profit, right, it makes everything better. It makes it a better employment environment for the employees. It makes it a better environment for the customers, and it's better for the owner. You're going to make better decisions because you don't have to make decisions whether or not I can pay a bill. It's a decision of what can I do better.
And that is it, exactly. We have a lot of long-time employees in the company. Our office manager in Chicago has been with us 30 years. I have a kitchen manager in Chicago, been with me 33. I have dishwashers and busboys in Chicago have been with me 30 years. Wow. That's what they choose to do. So with us, it's always been honesty. We try to be very fair employers. We try to be honest with our people. Doesn't mean they have to accept what we're saying, but if they buy into it, we are good to our people. We tend to be the highest or one of the highest paying in the area for our managers. We've had a 401k plan in place for a long time. All our managers have top tier healthcare, vision, dental, etc. They get mileage. These guys get clothing allowances.
Wow.
We pay for their cell phones. So we go that extra mile. And we try to do the same thing for our employees. We have an employee of the month. We try to reward them. We try to have a party for them every year. We have season tickets with the Cubs, and we try to spread them out amongst employees that we feel are overachieving or doing a good job for us, et cetera. So it's watching out for that. But, yes, it is the bottom line. And, yes, does it enable us to do those things? Absolutely. It changes the dynamic of what we do, but we also like to reinvest in our location. So it is important for us to have that profit and ability to make sure that when you do come in, you're not sitting in a stool that has a rip in it or it's wobbly, et cetera. And those things are going to happen. And at some point you decide, we need to change something out. And it's addressing the needs of the staff. In particular, our kitchen.
Yep.
In this business, you have a fryer down or the stove's not lighting up and you make those capital expenditures. It's being able, A, to do it, but B, actually deciding to do it in a timely manner, not letting them say, well, it's been 6 months and I've been down a fryer. Anything that impacts what's being put on a plate impacts the customer, which at the end will impact us. So either you address it and you deal with it or you can kind of brush it under the rug. But that's just business. We're so capped by the cash flow that it is not uncommon to see.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets a little tricky.
So I feel like we're at a point in the restaurant space where price elasticity is really coming into place where, I don't know if we're going to be able to survive a $20 plus $20 to $25 burger, at least not in downtown Chicago. Maybe Streeterville can support that, but I don't think it's going to happen. But food costs are not, and all costs are not going down.
No.
What are some creative ways that you're looking at your restaurants and saying, this is how we can preserve our bottom line while also still, preserving my customer base and customer experience and my employee base?
All our businesses are built on one model for success, and that's volume.
Mm-hmm.
So every location is big, except for Lakeville. I mean, big for the area, I guess, but the other 3 restaurants are large. So we're built for volume. So we try to bring in a staff that we can train to turn tables that can handle the volume, as we call beyond the bar sling, servers that can turn tables and not fall apart by your third seating, et cetera. So everything we do is based on that. So it's not based on necessarily raising the menu 50 cents or $1 here when we're hit by that. Luckily, we're still making that model work.
Yeah.
So we haven't been necessarily forced to look at that. But it is getting close to that point where you're. So that's what I call the staring match. I referred to earlier. We're looking at, while we're waiting for, ABC next door or XYZ at the other end of the street. What are they doing? What are they charging for a Miller Lite? What are they charging for a burger? What are they charging for a Reuben?
Yeah,
etc. Knowing what the cost is of the goods, and as I mentioned before, I believe that we probably have a higher base cost than some of our competitors simply because of what we offer to our managers. I mean, we have, we'll go into. We even have a leadership director. We actually have a life coach on staff.
Oh, cool.
For our managers and our staff to help aid them with some of the issues they're dealing with. So we have a lot of different, I call them support group managers, upper management that bring a lot of value to the team and the company, but at a high cost.
Yeah.
So it's those little things that we have to find a way to keep, because I think that's what sets us apart as a group. That's what keeps us really engaged with our employees. It allows us to really get a feel for what they're seeing, what they're feeling, how they're transitioning on a daily basis to the different things they deal with. And it is a cyclical thing, depends on the time of the year, on what the clientele that we get is. Great America, Fright Fest, summer, winter, it's not a factor, etc. The Lakes region here in Lake Villa is very different in the summer than it is in the winter, and etc. So it's training the staff nonstop to adapt to those changes on a continual basis.
You manage a team of several hundred, so that's it's a pretty good sized operation. When you look at what you bring to the table, because you have people bringing different things to the table for you, but what do you think are your, say, 1 to 3 most important things that you personally bring to the organization?
Calm is number one.
Calm.
I think I'm that voice of reason. Mario, who is my kitchen manager in Chicago, I said to him the other day, I said, okay, you've been with me 33 years. In those 33 years, how many times have I raised my voice or yelled at you? He said, I know exactly how many, 3. I said, okay. He goes, and I deserved all of them. So calm would be my number one, because I listen and I try to digest before I answer. And I always try to put myself in the shoes of the employer or the person that I'm dealing with. Number 2 is patience, honestly. And I think I bring hope to our employees too, especially our upper management. They want growth. They want to see us continue to evolve and grow and do things, whether it's internally as a company by driving our numbers or by acquiring or looking at another location. And I think they know that we're always on the look or on the prowl for something bigger and better. Our goal is to always continue to grow, because with that, they've seen what the company gives back as we do well. And I share that with them. We're very, very blunt with them. I like my cars. I'm a car guy. And I said, I don't hide my car, and there's no way you're going to miss it, because the license plate say O'Toole's on it. So I said, I don't hide my cars. I don't hide where I live. I said, I've been at this for a long time, and outside of here, I've had other investments that have paid off for me, etc. I said, but I like my lifestyle, and I like the way I live, and I know that you guys like the way you're headed. So my goal is to keep that for me, for you, for everybody else, while keeping the customer happy and offering value and the top quality product to them. So I think that's a lot of what I bring to the table, is keeping them on point with that, and always being frank with them. I always tell them what we're looking at, and I don't pull punches when a location's underperforming or having issues. I'll do the same thing. I'm not necessarily calling out the general manager of that store or the store, but we do mention it. We have meetings every month, and we share the numbers of the stores, the sales, the figures, how much they're up, their food costs, etc. And we kind of try to help each other. We have what's called a tap group, where all upper management meets, and then we invite different store managers from the other stores to join us, and we'll walk them through different scenarios. Something as simple as our leadership director will walk them through if there's an open shooter, or somebody at the location, somebody comes in with a gun. What do we do? How would you transition? You ask a manager from the store, what would you do if somebody walked in the front door with a ski mask on and a gun? And we walk through that scenario to teach them what the company policy is and what we expect from you. Because in a moment of panic, we don't want anybody trying to be a hero or doing the wrong thing. Safety of our employees and our customers are tantamount to anything, obviously monetarily. So it's things like that. We discuss anything and everything, even dealing with somebody comes in with a dog, that they claim is a service animal, and you question the Chihuahua on the lab with the rhinestone collar, and so it's every little thing like that. So we walk through a lot of scenarios, and we try to teach them, is what I said, calm, not quite Zen. I'm not going to say Zen, but to adapt to things that are you're challenged with every single day. And that's what we do as a company, to learn how to deal with things. And I think we're honestly one of the best out there at being able to deal with things. You walk into Chicago, and the place is literally, there's a 2-hour wait, and there's 400 and something people sitting in there. Yeah. And the Bears are either winning or losing, whatever's on the TVs. And our staff's just humming along, like nothing's going on, waiting for the tables to turn. When they're calm, they deal with the punches, they deal with the situations, and they're very good. You're dealing with a professional group down there that knows how to handle volume.
So we kind of talked about what you bring to the table. What types of things are you looking for in your employees? What do you think is gonna, for you, that you say, hey, these are the top 3 things that I think is important for them to bring to the table that I'm looking for?
Number one is the passion for the business. You have to want to do this. It can't be just kind of a side gig. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot of people that this is a part-time job, but they've done it in the past and they're good at it. It can't be something that you're just doing, I just need a couple extra bucks to get me through. I need a new set of tires on my car. You have to go at it with some passion for doing it, because if you don't buy into what I do, then it's pointless. It doesn't matter that we're sourcing, a certain type of burger patty, or that we're, making all of our sauces from scratch, or frying tortilla chips in the kitchen, frying the potato chips in the morning to put out. If you don't buy into it, if you can't convey what we're selling, then the customer isn't going to either. The chef and everybody else puts a lot of time and effort into coming up with these drinks. We have mixologists on staff to come up with the drinks, and some of them get a little out there and not be your thing, but it is for somebody, and we're trying different things. So that's probably number one for me, is passion. Number 2 is just punctuality and respect. Somebody that can show up on time and respect the business enough to be there on time and come to work dressed appropriately, be prepared for work, as a mutual respect for your co-worker as well. And the third for me is honesty. You have to be honest. Obviously, in this business, there's a lot of temptation at times. It's not necessarily a cash business anymore, a lot of credit cards, but there is always the opportunity for manipulation. You have to come in and you have to be honest, because we as an employer are very honest about everything we do, and we're very proud of our track record and the things that we do from top to bottom. Everything from the way we treat our employees to the way we run the company and the way we give back. So I think those 3 traits are extremely important to us and an individual. Aside from that, we can teach you a lot of things. I mean, honestly, it's not a looks thing. A lot of places hire based on looks. It's not that for us. It's the individual, and we're looking for longevity. We want people to come and work for us for a long time, whether it's a full-time thing or a part-time thing, but for you to really love what you do, be here because you buy into what we're doing. And that's the biggest thing. You're not only just selling the customer, you're actually selling the employee to buy into what you're trying to sell.
Definitely. I like that.
You've traveled a few times that I'm aware of, Mexico, Iceland, blah, blah, and what have you brought back? Like, what's your favorite thing you've brought back food-wise? Like, you're like,
that's a tough one. We've been so many places. We've been blessed. We've been fortunate to see things. We brought back some of the German dishes from when we were in Germany for Oktoberfest, kind of the presentation. We went and sourced out. We were one of the first to bring in a company called Milwaukee Pretzel. Now that you see it everywhere, I think it's even in the grocery stores. Yep. But we got lucky because they were local customers when they were from Gurnee. So when they were first coming to us, we got exclusivity for a small amount of time to sell their pretzel, and then everybody else got wind of it. But we knew we wanted to have a pretzel. We wanted to be a little different than what other people did. So having chefs on staff and having Sarah, my wife, have that creativity of being a chef, we took it and we cut into little pieces and we flash fry our pretzels. So it has a little crisp. It's a little bit different. So seeing things in their natural state, when I say natural state in Germany, seeing the pretzels, big gigantic pretzels, as big as your head, and things like that, really made us look into that, knowing that we wanted to have that item on our menu. But a lot of it's not necessarily the food thing. In this business, if you look at our menu and then you go down and look at the other 10 menus, close proximity for anybody that's not serving ethnic type of menu, we're all very similar. I mean, we're all going to have burgers, we're all going to have salads, we're most of it going to have some type of fish, etc. So we kind of all borrow from each other. I hate to use the word steal in this business. You borrow from each other, you put your own spin on it, you tweak it a little bit, and hopefully it's something that's yours. But at the end of the day, like I said, my Miller Lite's no different than Miller Lite next door to me, or the Budweiser, etc. It's how you serve it. Yeah. It's make sure the glass is clean, etc., and put a smile on your face. And those are the variables. But I haven't seen all that much. There's been some odd things that you see. Iceland, whale meat and things like that. Obviously, we're going to bring in. Iceland was not a home run for food for us, unfortunately. The experience was fantastic, but the food, in our opinion, there's much to be desired there. It was a little tough.
Yeah.
But it was fun. In Mexico, being a Mexican descent, I've always tried to not bring that end of the business into ours because honestly, I get this a lot when I tell people, what are you doing? I'm the restaurant. Oh, you sell Mexican food? I'm like, no, actually, it's an Irish themed pub. It's like, well, you don't look Irish. I'm like, well, my wife's a McKinnon, so the Irish comes from that side. I said, no, we don't. I was like, wow, you ever heard of Carlos O'Brien's? Or I'm like, yes, I've heard of them. So you kind of get caught into that. So yes, I've always tried to push away from the Mexican food. We have tacos and nachos, but I don't necessarily say that's a Mexican menu. But we try to our menu is very eclectic. That's way of putting it. We have, I think dishes from all around the world. We have a little bit of everything. We do try to put a spin on things. So.
Yeah, the pretzels are really good. You got that cauliflower shawarma bowl, and stuff that you just don't see it in other places.
And that's what it is. We do try and lean on the ethnicity side of of our spectrum of eating. It's kind of what's out there, what's popular, and honestly, we try to incorporate something that people accept, but that is healthier too. And we've really been pushing that over the past few years. We try to incorporate a lot of our small dishes that may not sound great, may not be the most popular, but they're a little bit healthier. Right now we have a meze plate, which you see in Mediterranean-style restaurants, which is small pieces of feta. We have radish on there, hummus, tzatziki, things along those lines with grilled naan or pita bread. It has taken off because people like to pick at things, and it's gotten a lot of popularity lately. So it's little things like that, but by no means are we trying to pretend that we're a Mediterranean restaurant. We're just kind of trying to follow the trend too.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's good to have that mix because you can serve everybody, but you don't go too crazy. I mean, a traditional Greek restaurant might have the 5-page menu.
No.
And it's hard to run a profitable business that way.
It is. It is very hard.
While also providing a very high quality and differentiated product. So, I think you guys do a very good job of that. I mean, I think the Michigan Avenue salad is one of the better salads I've ever had.
That's our number one. Yes, it is. That was a home run, and one of our ex-chefs brought that to the table, and I think it was a spin on where he came from.
Okay.
That he brought that, but yes, that's been a home run. And the same thing over the years as we transition. We use a Coleman's chicken breast. We try to use a healthier chicken breast. You don't necessarily publicize it or beat it over people's heads. That's what we're doing. We just do it.
Yeah.
And I think people will realize it once they eat it that, this is the rubber chicken that I get down the street. And we actually are cooking the chicken to order. And it's like, the chicken on my salad's actually warm. It's not cold like other places. So no, we don't pre-cook it and slice it and dice it and throw it in. Or, if you really do your homework and start looking at what you're eating, if you're going to somebody's chains, they're not even cooking that chicken anymore. It's coming out of a plastic bag already cut up. It's different, but I'm not going to go into that thing. I think the customer realizes why some things on our menu may be a little bit more expensive when we don't have the $12.99 all you can eat, 3-option appetizer plate. So
It's coming off a conveyor belt in the kitchen, yeah.
A lot of them are using impingers. That is correct. They don't cook anymore. They have multi-lever impingers, so you put it on a certain lever, like a pizza. If you guys know what an impinger is,
Yep.
It's like the conveyor belt. You see that people put the pizza on. So that's what they do. If you put it on belt 2, there's your medium. You put it on this belt, there's your medium well, etc. So, and all of the chains, because of the shortages, their GMs are in the kitchen running those impingers.
Wow.
So there's a lot of transition. I'm not saying everybody does it. I'm not saying that these large chains of Italian restaurants are opening bags of Alfredo or marinara or anything else. I'm not saying they're not, but we're still trying to do things the old way. So, but it's getting harder.
Yeah.
Because of the labor costs and the time involved in the competition. At some point, you have to look at some options where they're handicapping you and your abilities to grow too. So it's an everyday battle. It really is. And the chains for us as an independent are public enemy number one because of their size, their volume, their side deals.
Yeah.
with all the manufacturers, pricing that we just don't get. So we're always at a disadvantage from them. People say, well, I can go here and get this. I'm like, but do you know what it is?
Mm-hmm.
B, it's a different operation. I said, we're a local operation that are hiring local people. The money here, the taxes are going to, we're local residents. We pay taxes into the school system, et cetera. I said, their profits are all going to wherever they're based out of, whether it's Dallas, Atlanta, or New York. I said, think about where you're spending your dollars and, try to be, I would say shop independent if you can, if your wallet, allows it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm seeing with a lot of the chain restaurants, the fast casual restaurant, your Chili's, Applebee's, whatever it is, I think that consumer now is looking at more of they're going to go one of two ways, right? Either I need a full comprehensive sit-down service where it's got a full bar and more artisan food, or the other way where you're walking up to a counter, you order, and you got a food runner bringing out your food. I think that middle tier where they've lived is kind of dying off. That's why you've seen them close locations in that space, in the chain space. And I really see that as kind of becoming the divide in the restaurant business.
It is, and it's been happening for some time.
Yeah, if you go to newer markets like Scottsdale, Nashville, so many of the restaurants are either one of those two things, right? They're either you walk up to a counter order and somebody's running out food, or you're going for that full sit-down experience. It's not there's not that in between, and that's what has kind of opened up my eyes to that change in the restaurant space.
Yes, no doubt. It's a transition. It's the labor pool too, and the costs. I mean, Chicago just passed they're doing away with the tip credit for restaurants, and that's for a long time, servers down there have not, servers, bartenders, anybody to tip employee, they didn't receive the full minimum wage, which is, I believe, $15.80 an hour right now in Chicago. They receive $9.80 an hour, and the difference is made up by their tips. If they didn't hit that $15.80 mark, we as a restaurant are obligated to pay them that difference to make sure they're making minimum wage.
Yep.
Well, there was a big movement for minimum wage to be set at minimum wage plus tips, and the movement, I don't want to get too much into it, but I feel that it was they weren't necessarily telling the truth of the situation. Are there some locations out there where the owner maybe wasn't paying that portion into the employees' money? Yes, but for the most part, servers that work at a place that does decent are going to make way more. My servers and bartenders downtown average, well into the 30s, $40 an hour.
Yeah.
So all that's going to do for the restaurant is we have to raise prices. Pay everybody $15.90 an hour versus the $9.80. Subsidize is a big difference. So what restaurants are going to do is, as you mentioned, find a way to automate, find a way to, for a long time, everybody has thought it's a novelty when you see these TikToks or videos of the little robot coming out. Like, oh, look, it's so cute, and everybody's taking pictures of it. Well, get used to it, because you're going to see a lot more of those robots. Because you can just put the food on the tray, and the robot heads out and delivers it to your table. Not setting it on your table, bringing it to your table. Now you're pulling the food off the robot's tray to put on your table. But that's one way to eliminate labor. So as this gets bigger, that robot's going to get less expensive to purchase. More restaurants are going to say, hey, let me look at this. Or kiosk ordering at the table, or tablets, et cetera, where you're not going to have a human that's going to come up to you, as you mentioned, going up to the counter, ordering, getting a number, sitting down, and them calling out your name, or somebody running your food. That's going to become a lot more seen, especially in the city of Chicago, as places, the mom and pop simply aren't going to be able to transition into this, to draw somebody, pay the full wage that's maybe was only making, maybe they weren't making $30, $40 an hour that some of the other locations were making, but maybe they were making $20 an hour with their tips. So now $15.80 is a base, and then they're going to make $25 an hour. Mom and pops are going to be able to afford that $15.80. They're going to have to make some hard decisions on what they're going to do, and that's where you're really going to start to see some of the closures. And there's a lot of studies that have been done out on the West Coast, San Francisco, and some of the cities that have transitioned, and it depends on how you read into it. I say, well, it hasn't altered anything, it hasn't altered the restaurant business. And the indicators that I've read are all contrary to that. The people that I've spoken to that are in the business. When I say the business, I'm talking to independent owners like myself. I've not found one that has a positive comment to say. And trust me, if it was working, I would say, oh, this is great, business is up, profits are up, the employees are happy, everybody's making more money, and nobody's going to complain. That's not the case. You can spin it any which way, and there's always that method to create whatever you want to on paper. But I firmly believe that it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to take away from the experience of what we do. And you hit it on the head. It's either you're going to choose a location that has a server and a bartender and somebody you can sit there and talk to, and the experience that you want, but it's going to come at a higher cost. Or I can go and sit down and punch in my order in the kiosk and wait for my number to be called and head up and grab my food.
Yep.
Just like a McDonald's or anything else. And I think that's going to really start to become a lot more dominant. So it's a decision on the employee. On the customer to make that choice. And
Yeah.
we, in the meantime, are in that limbo where it's like, what is going to happen? So we want to believe that the customer likes the experience that they're getting. And that's why the onus is on us to continue to do what we do, continue to be better every single day, and that's what we're trying to teach our staff. We're in a mad scramble right now to hire enough good people that can become what we were pre-COVID. 2019 was the best year of the history of the company. And then I don't know if we'll ever get back to that, but that's our goal. So we went from the peak of the best with our people to hitting rock bottom, almost losing everything. But with that, unfortunately, we lost a lot of that key personnel that will never come back, because the restaurants were hit so hard. Open, nope, close, open, nope, close, limited, 6 feet apart, carry out only. They had to go out and find other jobs, because the first time I was okay, I came back and I gave it a shot. The second time, I have bills, I have rent, I have children, I have obligations.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And Amazon hiring, or whoever it was, they found other opportunities, and now they like that regularity. They're not making the kind of money they used to, and they'll be the first ones to tell you that, but at least they know what they're bringing home every single week, and there's always that fear. What if there's another outbreak, and then you guys are sacked again the way you were last time? So that's always in the back of our mind as well.
How is carryout? I've been reading that carryout is on the rise. Are you seeing that in your business too?
Absolutely.
And then you said you have big restaurants, and I thought I'd read that the trend was maybe for smaller carryout type of establishments.
That is exactly it, and you see why we're kind of in that kind of no man's land right now, really working hard to continue to cultivate what we do.
Yeah.
Mostly the name and the reputation, and that's why we reinvest in our properties to make sure, when I said earlier, to stay relevant. Relevance is a word that kind of epitomizes a lot of different things, and for us, it's that. Make sure that we're making those changes, that we're adapting to what's happening. So yes, there's a big change going on right now, and we're trying to find a way to make it work within the locations that we have. But we are looking at another location or two, and I can tell you they're all about half the size of the current footprints that we have now. So our future is also to downsize the next locations to be a little bit more agile in case things happen. Of course, when you're packed and you got to wait, and it's when you kind of kick yourself and say, boy, I wish, it'd be great if we had another 100 seats, but I think safety sometimes is a better option.
Yeah. Talking with other restaurant owners, I've heard and seen that same trend where that's the thought that they're thinking, is that smaller dine-in, just because that carry-out business is so heavy. Obviously, you guys do a great amount of bar business too, and that's what will keep those larger footprints more relevant.
Yes, but the bar business is a dwindling number.
Yeah.
We're primarily, out here in the suburbs, we're primarily food. In Chicago, it's a 50-50 mix.
Wow.
So a huge difference that we're out here, you're in the 20% for your alcohol. And I go back to early hours. I mean, I don't know if you guys live out here in the suburbs or not, but for the most part, 10 o'clock at night, good luck finding a restaurant that's open. If you're hungry, you're getting Domino's, you open up your DoorDash app and you're like, oh, these are my options. You're not going to find a lot of restaurants, not even Chili's or Applebee's or any of those places. They're same thing. They close early because the bar business just simply isn't there to drive those numbers any longer. And I go back to family communities, the enforcement of the laws, the driving, the lack of, actually out here, a lot of people say lack of Ubers after certain times nowadays, and not being able to get a reliable ride if they are having a couple of cocktails. So they just kind of cut it short.
Is Chicago coming back to what it was?
I don't even know how to answer that, because it's it's different every single day. It really is. It depends on, a lot of what goes on in Chicago is what you read and see, what you hear on the radio or see on TV or read in the papers. So that has really impacted tourism. A lot of people have looked at other options other than coming to Chicago. We've been steady. We definitely are not back to where we were in 2019, but we had a lot of positive markers for us when the bear season started.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely we're driving those numbers. It felt like the old days when the Bears kind of started doing what the Bears have been doing for some time now. So we don't know. We don't know where those indicators are going. And as the weather changes and transitions a little bit more into fall, true fall, because Chicago loves their fall. Yeah. That's football weather. That's go inside kind of a situation. But as you see, the weather than today, it's been great. Mm-hmm. It's been more of a golfer's dream than a football and kind of day. So with that, we don't know exactly what's going on. It feels that way certain days, and there's certain days where it feels like you're in a completely different city, different country. So that's just a tough one, and we don't know at times where the customers are coming from or where the driving force is. But we just count our blessings that business has been good, not great, but good, and good's okay right now. So as we adjust, we used to be open till 3 a.m. in Chicago every single day. We have a late hours license. We can actually be open till 4, but we never chose to do that. Mm-hmm. We always ran till 3 just to let our customers stay a little bit longer. We didn't want to kick them out. We didn't want the 2 o'clock bar sending us there. Yeah. They're customers that maybe really did need another drink because we were open till 4, so we split it and went to 3. Well, ever since COVID, we went to 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And with the situation in Chicago and the criminal activity up and the lack of police response, not their fault, it's just the numbers. We decided to stick with the 2 o'clock, and I think that's going to be a situation for the foreseeable future. But in the past, that last hour, going till 3, was a very lucrative hour, and that was all, for the most part, liquor. Yep. So that was a driving force. So not having that is definitely part of the impact for us, but we're not prepared to make those changes for many reasons. We sat down and we also listened to what our employees and managers had to say. And for them, it was a safety thing, a mental challenge to not read those things and think, well, it's not going to happen. Not here in Streeterville. I don't think there's anywhere in Chicago right now where you can say it's not going to happen here. I mean, yeah. So we decided to do it for them as well. Once again, it's listening to our staff and understanding it's not that, let's pull every single dollar that we can. And that's what we've always said to the employees. If that was really it was a money grab, we would have been open till 4 all along, and we open as early as we possibly could, et cetera. We try to let the employees know that we do listen to them and that they're, we do keep their well-being in mind at all times. So as challenging as it may be, and it may sound like it's a hollow promise, or the words really don't mean anything. They truly do, and I think they get that at the end of the day. But yes, back to Chicago. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I want to say yes, and I guess you can ask me once we get through football season. I can give you a better answer.
I guess we'll say Chicago comes and goes with the Bears.
Well, we need the Cubs to make the playoffs, so I've been doing every dance and standing on one foot, and so we're trying to get them there. And then obviously the excitement of the Blackhawks is going to take them some time. Yeah. But seeing Bedard and kind of the way they're building, I'm excited for that. And the Bulls,
we'll see.
So anyway,
I think it's a great time to wrap things up. Junior, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Sharing.
Thank you for having me.
A wealth of knowledge, and especially hearing what you guys do for your employees and your staff. And I really think that I think that's one of the things that has driven you to accomplish what you've been able to accomplish, is that you've always had them in mind. While you had the entrepreneurial spirit, mind, thought process to grow and build, at the same time, you've always considered the staff and how do they aid in that journey. And that's what I'm seeing is really, that huge differentiator that's driving you guys. So thank you so much for sharing.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. And listeners, tune in for next time.
All right. Thanks.
You have been listening to the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. You can hear more real stories from real business owners about what it takes to make it in business by subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you like what you hear, leave a review and a 5-star rating. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs and Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com.